So let's kick off with some terminology that will focus on technology to begin with. I've used technology as quite a broad term, but I think it probably encompasses what we'll talk about best. Firstly, as we explored in the last presentation, probably one of the most used terms you'll hear is an OBU or OBE, which is an onboard equipment or onboard unit. This is a specific, typically aftermarket device that is used for tolling purposes. It is linked to a specific vehicle and or customer account. The most common form of onboard unit that you will see is relatively small, about 7 to 8 centimeters across, 1 centimeter deep, and typically sits on the windscreen of a car just behind the rear view mirror or around the rear view mirror location. Another term that is often used, a couple of terms, is a toll tag or transponder. This is just another term for onboard unit. It's used a little bit more in North America and outside of Europe, but it means the same thing. So Dsrc, particularly with regards to Europe, you'll hear this a lot. Dsrc is an abbreviation for dedicated short-range communications. This is quite a broad sort of technical term that relates to a wireless technology that enables high-speed and secure communication between 2 points. So in this case, between an onboard unit in the vehicle and a Dsrc receiver at a fixed point by the roadside. The kind of Dsrc that we use in Europe operates on the 5.8 gigahertz spectrum. To put this in maybe more of a consumer context, it's a very similar wireless communication technology that is used for Wi-Fi in the house or Wi-Fi in the office. Uses the same kind of spectrum for that. GNSS stands for the Global Navigation Satellite System. This is typically used as an abbreviation for satellite-based tolling. So you will quite often hear people say it's a GNSS toll or the country uses GNSS tolling. This is just a shorthand to describe tolling which is based on GPS position data and therefore charges the vehicle based on the specific distance it has traveled, as opposed to a particular tolled section which is charged when you're using a Dsrc onboard unit, because of course that doesn't measure every single mile or kilometer that you're traveling. ANPR or ALPR, depending on whether you say number plate or license plate. This relates to the video-based tolling, is more commonly what you will hear. This is where, in place of an onboard unit in the vehicle, tolls are charged or indeed enforced based on a video capture of the vehicle's license plate or number plate. RFID, again, this is a broader technical term for radio frequency identification, which can cover all manner of things. You also have RFID tags in widespread use for things like security tags in clothing shops or on more expensive, say, bottles of wine in supermarkets. There will be an RFID sticker on there. For the purposes of tolling, it relates to 3 different protocols that are used across the world. It's essentially the same as Dsrc, it's just a different protocol, and there are slight differences in the onboard units, etc. RFID 6C, it has a much longer designation that I won't go into, but more commonly referred to as RFID 6C, is a specific protocol. It's a passive form of RFID, which means there is no battery in the OBU or the toll tag. It's typically a sticker that can be stuck on the windshield. You see an example here. As I said, there's no battery. It is completely passive. So when you are passing through a toll point, it receives a small amount of power from the transceiver at the roadside and then sends the data back based on that. This is in fact the most common form of RFID used for tolling across the world. Turkey, for example, uses RFID 6C if we're talking in a European context. Outside of Europe, it's extremely widespread across South America and Asia as well, particularly Southeast Asia. So RFID 915 or TDM, you will often hear both used. This is an active protocol, predominantly used in North America. The onboard unit, as you can see, looks very similar to the kind of Dsrc unit that we have in Europe. It does use a battery, therefore the onboard unit has a lifespan, and it emits a slightly more powerful signal because of that. And as I say, it is used predominantly today in the United States, Canada, and also to a small extent in Mexico. And finally, we have RFID 6B or SIGO. This is another passive form of RFID that is used again predominantly in the US and states like Texas. It is also used in Dubai and in one or two other countries, but is probably the least used of these three main protocols.